It's one of the most quoted films in cinema history, yet almost nobody remembers it correctly. A Few Good Men feels bulletproof now, but behind the scenes, it was fragile, debated, and carefully engineered just to survive. Studios feared the courtroom would bore audiences. The ending was nearly rewritten. And that famous line, "It was never meant to be the point." These aren't random trivia facts. They're decisions that quietly shaped everything you think you know about this movie. And the first one almost erased the film's entire identity. Number 1. The courtroom finale nearly vanished. The climax that defines this film almost never happened. Studio executives were deeply concerned that a long, dialogue-heavy courtroom sequence would lose mainstream audiences. They feared the film would feel too much like a stage play, too static, too risky for a major theatrical release. There were serious discussions about restructuring the entire third act to avoid what they saw as a commercial trap. Rob Reiner and the creative team pushed back hard. They argued that the courtroom wasn't just a setting, it was the engine of the entire story. Every character arc, every thematic thread, every piece of tension had been built to explode in that room. Cutting it or softening it would gut the film's emotional payoff and reduce it to something forgettable. Keeping the courtroom was a late, risky commitment that ultimately defined the movie's identity. Without it, there's no confrontation, no confession, no legacy. The very thing executives feared would sink the picture became the reason audiences still remember it over 3 decades later. It's a reminder that the safest choice isn't always the smartest one. Number 2. Jessup was never meant to testify. Colonel Jessup was originally designed to loom over the story without ever stepping into the spotlight. In early versions, he remained distant and symbolic, a figure of authority whose power came from absence rather than presence. The idea was that his influence would be felt through orders passed down, through the fear he inspired, but never through direct confrontation. That changed when the creative team realized something was missing. The film needed escalation, a moment where the abstract threat became viscerally real. Putting Jessup on the stand transformed the entire structure. Suddenly, the movie wasn't just about uncovering truth from a distance. It became about forcing 2 men into the same room and watching one try to break the other. This decision shifted A Few Good Men from a procedural into a confrontation. The courtroom became an arena, and the film's tension multiplied because the villain was no longer hiding behind protocol. He was right there, daring anyone to challenge him. That structural escalation gave the movie its heartbeat. Number 3. That famous line was never the point. "You can't handle the truth" became one of the most quoted lines in film history, but it was never meant to summarize the movie's message. The line wasn't written as a triumphant moral statement or a defining thesis. It was meant to reveal something darker about Colonel Jessup's psychology, his absolute certainty that civilians are too weak to understand what protection really costs. The intention was discomfort, not victory. Audiences were supposed to sit with the unsettling reality that Jessup believes every word he's saying. He's not performing villainy, he's expressing a worldview that he considers noble and necessary. The line was designed to expose his mindset, not to provide a neat takeaway for the audience. But audience reaction simplified everything. The moment became a crowd pleaser, a quotable catchphrase stripped of its original weight. What was meant to be an uncomfortable window into moral certainty became a t-shirt slogan. The film's deeper theme, that truth is genuinely difficult and rarely clean, got buried beneath the applause. Number 4. Cruise was seen as too likable. Tom Cruise was a massive star by 1992, but that star power created unexpected problems. Studio executives worried that his natural charisma and audience appeal would undermine the role of Daniel Kaffee. They feared viewers wouldn't believe him as a flawed, evasive lawyer who avoids responsibility. He was too likable, too winning, too easy to root for from the start. The concern was that Cruise's presence would flatten the character's arc. Kaffee needed to begin as someone audiences couldn't fully respect, a talented lawyer coasting on plea bargains and charm. If Cruise made him instantly heroic, the transformation would feel hollow. The tension between his ability and his avoidance was essential to the story working. This role quietly reshaped Cruise's dramatic reputation. By playing against his natural likability and earning respect gradually, he proved he could anchor a film driven by words rather than action. The performance showed range that would influence his career choices for years afterward, opening doors beyond the blockbuster roles that had defined him. Number 5. The verdict almost went the other way. Early versions of the story flirted with a far more ambiguous ending. There were drafts where the outcome wasn't nearly as definitive, where the moral victory felt murkier and the consequences less clear. Creatively, this ambiguity was appealing because it reflected the film's uncomfortable themes more honestly than a clean resolution could. The argument for ambiguity was strong. Real justice is messy, and a tidier ending risked undercutting everything the story had been building toward. If the film was truly about the limits of truth and the cost of challenging power, shouldn't the ending reflect that complexity rather than resolve it neatly? Ultimately, the verdict was softened for clarity and emotional satisfaction. The final version still carries moral weight, but it lands more decisively than earlier drafts intended. This choice subtly changes the film's message, offering audiences catharsis while quietly stepping back from the darker implications the story had been willing to explore. Number 6. The courtroom is mostly an illusion. The courtroom that feels so imposing on screen was never a complete space. Production designers built only what the camera needed to see, using partial sets, strategic angles, and careful blocking to create the illusion of a larger, more intimidating room. Every shot was engineered to control exactly what audiences perceived, turning limitations into creative advantages that most viewers never notice. This approach wasn't just about budget. The incomplete space actually helped the filmmakers direct tension more precisely. By controlling sightlines and forcing specific compositions, they could emphasize character dynamics in ways a real courtroom might not allow. The camera became a tool for psychological pressure, not just documentation of events unfolding. Physical space was used to support dialogue-driven drama rather than compete with it. The walls that didn't exist, the angles that hid empty corners, the blocking that kept focus tight, all of it served the words being spoken. Audiences feel the weight of that room without ever realizing how much of it was carefully constructed absence designed to heighten every exchange. Number 7. Military accuracy was selective. Realism in this film was guided, never blindly followed. Military advisors were consulted throughout production to ensure that uniforms, terminology, and behavior felt authentic. But the filmmakers never committed to strict accuracy at the expense of clarity. When protocol conflicted with storytelling, story won every time. The priority was always emotional truth over procedural perfection. Advisors helped shape believable behavior while allowing deliberate deviations where necessary. Certain procedures were simplified, certain ranks adjusted, certain moments heightened beyond what would happen in an actual military courtroom. The goal was credibility, not documentation. Audiences needed to believe what they were seeing without getting lost in technical details that would slow the pace. This selective approach meant authenticity served the story rather than constrained it. The film feels grounded in military culture without becoming a training manual. That balance allowed dramatic moments to land with full impact while maintaining enough realism to keep skeptical viewers engaged throughout. Accuracy was a tool, never a limitation. Number 8. The Marines were told not to perform. Background Marines in the film were given unusual direction. Instead of acting naturally or adding personality to their roles, they were instructed to suppress emotion entirely. Stiffness was the goal. Restraint mattered more than realism because the production wanted bodies that reinforced theme rather than distracted from it. They needed presence without personality. This choice was deliberate and thematic. The film explores obedience, institutional pressure, and the cost of following orders without question. Having background performers stand rigid and expressionless visualized those ideas without a single word of dialogue. Their presence became a constant reminder of the system being examined, a silent chorus of compliance. The result was an atmosphere of institutional weight that permeates every courtroom scene. Those motionless figures weren't decoration. They were visual arguments, silent evidence of the culture on trial. By stripping performance from the background, the filmmakers ensured that individuality belonged only to those willing to break from the machine and speak for themselves. Number 9. How the film sells authority visually. Power in this movie is established long before anyone speaks about it. Framing, posture, blocking, and costume hierarchy constantly signal who holds authority and who challenges it. The camera treats certain characters with deference, giving them space and stillness, while others are shown in positions that emphasize their subordination. Every composition carries meaning. Costume details reinforce this visual language throughout the film. Medals, insignia, and uniform precision communicate rank instantly. Characters who represent institutional power are dressed immaculately, while those who question it often appear slightly less polished, more human. These choices aren't accidental. They're a visual grammar that audiences read subconsciously before any dialogue begins. Authority is communicated visually long before it's challenged verbally. By the time the confrontation arrives, viewers already understand the power dynamics through composition alone. The dialogue confirms what the images have been saying all along, making the eventual challenge feel like a genuine disruption rather than just another scene in the sequence. Number 10. Demi Moore faced constant doubt. Skepticism surrounded Demi Moore's casting from the beginning. There were concerns about whether she could project courtroom credibility, whether audiences would accept her as a military lawyer standing beside Tom Cruise. The doubts weren't quiet. They created real pressure on set that she had to navigate throughout production while delivering a demanding performance. Moore's response was to strip her performance of theatrics entirely. Where another actor might have pushed for dramatic moments to prove their worth, she chose restraint and precision. Her character establishes authority through competence and composure rather than flash. Every choice she made was designed to earn credibility gradually rather than demand it immediately. This deliberate understatement gave her performance staying power that rewards repeat viewing. By refusing to compete for attention, she created a character who feels essential rather than decorative. The doubts she faced became invisible in the final product, replaced by a performance that anchors crucial scenes without ever demanding the spotlight for herself. Number 11. Jessup was played as a tragic figure. Jack Nicholson made a choice that transformed the entire film. Instead of playing Colonel Jessup as a cartoon villain, he approached the character as someone who genuinely believes he's the hero of the story. Jessup isn't performing evil. He's expressing convictions he considers noble, necessary, and beyond the comprehension of civilians who've never faced real danger or sacrifice. This interpretation required Nicholson to find the humanity in a man ordering terrible things. He played Jessup as someone carrying burdens that others refuse to acknowledge, a protector forced into ugly decisions by a world that demands safety but won't face its cost. The character's anger comes from feeling unappreciated, not from cruelty for its own sake or simple malice. The result deepens discomfort rather than simplifying blame. Audiences can't dismiss Jessup as a monster because Nicholson won't let them. He forces viewers to recognize something genuine in the character's worldview, even while condemning his actions. That complexity is what elevates the confrontation from melodrama into something far more unsettling, memorable, and worth revisiting. Number 12. The big confrontation was engineered. The climactic courtroom scene feels spontaneous, like two men losing control in real time. But that sense of chaos was meticulously constructed through careful planning. Every beat, every interruption, every shift in power was mapped out in advance. The spontaneity audiences experience is actually precision disguised as explosion, craft masquerading as instinct. Pacing was essential to making the confrontation work as effectively as it does. The scene builds through calculated escalation, with reaction shots creating breathing room between verbal attacks. Silence was used as deliberately as dialogue, giving weight to moments before the next assault. Interruptions were timed to feel natural, while actually controlling exactly when tension would spike. This engineering extended to physical performance as well. Movements were blocked to shift dominance visually as the scene progressed. The camera work supported the psychological warfare, tightening on faces at crucial moments. What appears to be two actors improvising brilliance was actually a carefully choreographed battle designed to feel like anything but careful planning or rehearsal. Number 13. Uniform details were obsessively policed. Costumes in this film weren't just clothing, they were arguments. Every medal, every insignia, every crease was monitored obsessively to ensure that visual hierarchy remained consistent throughout production. The wardrobe department worked closely with military advisors to guarantee that rank and authority could be read instantly through appearance alone, without any confusion. This attention extended beyond just accuracy. Posture and physical alignment were policed alongside the uniforms themselves. Actors were coached on how military personnel carry themselves, how they stand, how they move through space with institutional weight. The goal was creating bodies that communicated discipline before anyone spoke a single word of dialogue or issued any command. Visual discipline reinforces hierarchy throughout the film in ways most viewers never consciously notice. The precision of uniforms makes the courtroom feel like a space where order dominates, where individuality is suppressed by design. When that order finally breaks, the disruption carries more weight, because the visual system has been so carefully maintained until that crucial moment. Number 14. Reiner fought to keep it talky. Studio executives pushed for more action. They wanted movement, visual spectacle, something beyond people talking in rooms. The concern was that audiences would grow restless watching a film built almost entirely on dialogue. Rob Reiner faced real pressure to open up the story, to add sequences that would break the verbal intensity and provide relief. Reiner defended dialogue as the engine of tension rather than its enemy. He argued that the words themselves were the action, that the courtroom confrontations carried more suspense than any chase sequence could provide. Trusting language over spectacle was a genuine gamble in an industry that often equates excitement with physical movement, visual scale, and kinetic energy. The decision to keep the film talky required confidence that the material could hold audiences without traditional excitement. That confidence paid off completely. The movie proves that dialogue, properly constructed and performed, generates more tension than explosions ever could. It's a testament to trusting craft over convention and believing audiences would follow wherever the words led. Number 15. A stage hit had to be rebuilt. Aaron Sorkin's play had already proven successful on stage, but that success guaranteed nothing for the screen. Theater and film operate by different rules, and what works in front of a live audience can feel static or stagey when captured by a camera. The adaptation required more than just filming the play. It demanded genuine reconstruction from the ground up. Dialogue that landed perfectly in a theater needed reshaping for cinematic rhythm. Stage plays allow longer speeches and different pacing, because audiences experience them in a single unbroken event. Film requires variation, visual punctuation, and a tempo that accounts for editing. Sorkin had to revisit language he'd already perfected and make it work in an entirely different medium with different demands. The reconstruction extended beyond just words to structure and visual storytelling. Scenes were reimagined for what cameras could capture that stages couldn't. The intimacy of close-ups, the geography of edited sequences, the rhythm of cuts all required adjustments to material that had worked beautifully in its original form. Adaptation meant complete transformation, not simple translation. Number 16. Kaffee isn't a hero at the start. The protagonist of this film begins as someone audiences aren't supposed to admire. Daniel Kaffee is introduced as a talented lawyer who coasts on plea bargains and charm, avoiding real responsibility whenever possible. He's skilled but evasive, capable but unwilling to risk anything that might actually challenge him. This wasn't accidental, it was absolutely essential to the story working. Tom Cruise had to play against his natural screen presence to make this arc believable. Kaffee needed to feel like someone wasting his potential, someone who chose comfort over conviction. The early scenes establish a man who treats serious cases like inconveniences to be resolved quickly. His talent makes his avoidance worse, not better, because he clearly could do more if he cared enough to try. The film tracks growth quietly, rather than announcing heroism with dramatic declarations. Kaffee's transformation happens through accumulation, small choices that build toward the willingness to fight. By the time he stands up in that courtroom, the change feels earned because audiences watched him resist it for so long. The arc works because it starts from genuine weakness, not false modesty or stage reluctance. Number 17. Jessup is right about one thing. The film's moral landscape is more complicated than it first appears. Colonel Jessup's worldview contains an uncomfortable kernel of truth that the movie never fully dismisses. The need for protection, for people willing to do difficult things so others can sleep safely, isn't rejected by the story. That need is acknowledged as real and valid, even as Jessup's methods are condemned. This complexity elevates the confrontation beyond simple good versus evil. The movie doesn't argue that military discipline is wrong, or that hard decisions are never necessary. It argues that unchecked authority that answers to no one and accepts no limits, becomes dangerous regardless of its original intentions. The target is abuse of power, not power itself or those who wield it. Many viewers miss this distinction entirely, remembering the film as a straightforward takedown of military arrogance. But the script is more careful than that. It condemns what Jessup did while acknowledging why someone might believe what he believes. That balance is what makes the ending genuinely uncomfortable, rather than simply satisfying. The victory is real, but the questions linger. Number 18. The code red wasn't the real crime. The incident at the center of the film is ultimately less important than the system that created it. A code red, the unofficial disciplinary action that led to tragedy, wasn't a rogue event. It was a predictable outcome of a culture built on unquestioning obedience. The movie uses this specific case to examine something much larger and more troubling than one bad order given by one officer. Obedience culture is the true target of the film's critique. The Marines who carried out the order weren't monsters. They were products of training designed to eliminate hesitation and independent judgment. The film asks whether that training, however useful in combat, creates dangers when accountability disappears. The system that produced the tragedy is more guilty than any individual operating within it. Many viewers focus on the dramatic confession and miss this broader accusation entirely. The climax delivers satisfaction by exposing Jessup, but the deeper argument is about institutions that make such abuses inevitable. The film suggests that without structural accountability, good intentions and honorable traditions can produce terrible outcomes. The real crime isn't what happened, it's what made it possible. Number 19. Silence does more than music. The film's most powerful moments often contain no score at all. During key confrontations, music drops away entirely, leaving only voices and the weight of what's being said. This wasn't a limitation or an oversight. It was a deliberate choice to strip away emotional cues and force audiences to sit with the tension unassisted by orchestral guidance or manipulation. Pauses were treated as seriously as dialogue throughout the production. The spaces between words carry meaning, creating pressure that music would actually diminish. When Jessup and Kaffee face each other, the silence around their exchanges makes every word land harder. There's nowhere to hide, nothing softening the impact of what's being spoken between these two men. This approach increases pressure and forces genuine engagement from viewers. Without music telling audiences how to feel, they must process the confrontation directly. The technique respects the material and the audience equally, trusting that the performances and words are strong enough to carry the weight alone. Silence becomes a tool as powerful as anything in the composer's arsenal could ever be. Number 20. The title almost meant something else. Early in development, alternate titles emphasized different aspects of the story entirely. Some focused on duty and military honor rather than truth and confrontation. The framing that titles provide shapes audience expectations before a single scene plays, and the options considered would have positioned the film very differently in viewers' minds from the opening frame. Titles that emphasize duty would have suggested a story about sacrifice and service rather than accountability and challenge. They would have primed audiences to sympathize with military culture rather than question it. The choice of a few good men shifted the frame toward the individuals caught in the system. The people asked to be good, within structures that complicate goodness considerably. The final title reshaped expectations before the film even began. It suggests something intimate and human rather than institutional and abstract. By focusing on the men rather than the code, the title signals that this story cares about people more than protocol. That emphasis carries through the entire film and defines what audiences remember long after they leave the theater. Number 21. The film is remembered incorrectly. The legacy of this movie is built on a fundamental misunderstanding. It's famous for one explosive moment, one quotable line, one scene of righteous confrontation. But that moment represents exactly what the film warns against: the seductive certainty that comes from believing you already know the truth. Audiences remember the shout while forgetting what surrounded it. The real message is quieter, darker, and far less comfortable than the famous clip suggests. The film isn't celebrating the exposure of a villain. It's asking difficult questions about what we demand from people who protect us, and what we're willing to overlook in exchange for safety. Those questions don't fit on a poster or work as a catchphrase for merchandise. Remembering the movie correctly requires sitting with its discomfort rather than escaping into its most theatrical moment. The irony is that the very thing that made it famous, that unforgettable line, obscured what the filmmakers were actually trying to say. The truth the film offers isn't something audiences can handle in a soundbite. It requires the full experience to understand it properly. A Few Good Men succeeds not by shouting truths, but by forcing viewers to sit with moral discomfort long after the credits roll. The film came remarkably close to being safer and simpler. Studios nearly cut the courtroom climax. The ending almost stayed ambiguous, and the dialogue-heavy approach was seen as a gamble that could easily fail. Every risk the filmmakers took shaped the movie audiences still quote decades later. But what makes this film endure isn't the famous line or the explosive confession. It's the uncomfortable questions buried beneath those moments. Questions about authority, obedience, and what we're willing to ignore in exchange for feeling protected. If these secrets changed how you see the film, like and subscribe for more movie secrets hidden in plain sight. Which scene in A Few Good Men feels different to you now after hearing these secrets? Let us know in the comments.